shortly. Great to see everybody's faces. Thank you for joining. Okay, and for those of you, you're welcome to listen in. If you want to join and show your face, that's fine too. Okay. Oop. All right, here we are. So everybody raise your hand if y'all can hear me okay. Great. Nice to see you, Alice, Tim and Ginger, Doug, Sandy, Becky. Hi, Eba. All right. Well, I would like to welcome everybody tonight. This is the first episode of World Fusion Wednesdays, and I am so grateful and happy to have Kat Epple here, my longtime friend and musical collaborator. And we're just excited to have you all here with us for this live interview and musical presentation. So let's see here. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Kat Epple. So we were just playing some music off of one of her albums, of her many albums over the years. And I would like to have her introduce herself, and then we're going to continue on. If you would, just please keep your mics muted, and we will have time to answer questions towards the end of our show. So without further ado, thank you, Kat Epple, for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Can everybody hear me all right? All right, good. That's great. Well, I thought since it's a World Fusion classroom, it would be nice for me to talk a little bit about some of my travels. And when I travel, I always travel with the intention of finding great traditional music in a place, or even interesting pop music in a place, like around the world. It can be pretty interesting. So when I stop at a city or a village, I try to seek out the musicians, the instrument makers, and also to collect as many of the traditional instruments as I can find or afford in each place. And then I learn to play them and use them in my music, my film score work, and also my albums. I was just going to give you a little tiny synopsis of some of the travels I've done. I've gone down the Amazon River on a boat with all scientists and me. It was, I toured with a concert band in Russia. One of the musicians in the band was a throat singer who also played cello at the same time. That was an interesting band. I was on an African safari and met a young man who played the flute. And I later found out that his flute also doubled as for monkey wrangling, because his job was to keep the monkeys off the guests in the lodge, keep them off the dinner table.
Wow, what was this when you traveled there?
That was in the 1990s. I have since traveled to Africa a couple more times and have had wonderful experiences in South Africa, and I love Zanzibar. That's one of my favorite cities in Africa that I've traveled. If nothing else, because it does sound such like an exotic place to be. And I've also traveled in India, including around on a tuk-tuk, those little three-wheel motorized vehicles where you take your life in your hands when you're in it. And performed with a heavy metal band in the UK, that was 2000.
That's a box to check off.
Yeah, really. Yeah, we were on it, and I had expected to stay in hotels and ended up being on a tour bus because they couldn't manage to coordinate the hotel room. So I was on a tour bus with 12 heavy metal guys, and they were the nicest guys ever. It was amazing. Of course, they weren't kids. I think if I had met the same young men in their 20s, I think they would have been delightful people, but it might not have been as peaceful of a tour as we did end up having. And
right.
I did travel quite a lot with legendary visual artist Robert Rauschenberg, who was also a very dear friend of mine, and he would commission me to play music in these huge art museums like the Guggenheim in Bilbao to perform for his art openings, which was a pretty fun little job. And
yes, and all the Met, and didn't you play in Spain as well?
Spain was one of the Guggenheims, because there are several Guggenheims. I played the Guggenheim in New York, right in the middle of that, it's a big round building. So I set up my amplifier right in the middle and aimed the amplifier up in the air to to fill the whole the big chasm there, because it's a pretty big atrium area there. And then in the 1980s, I traveled around the US in an old broken down van, or constantly breaking down van, playing electronic music in these small places. I'm thinking, what was I thinking? Electronic music in Mississippi in the 1980s.
But you did this, and this has leads us into sharing about your early music and how you got to where you are now. I do know some of the things I really enjoyed is some of the earlier music that you did with Bob and for the show Nova. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was an electronic music duo called Emerald Web, and that was my husband at that time, Bob Stoll, and me. No, he wasn't my husband yet. We were boyfriend, girlfriend. And so we decided to move to California and didn't have enough money to get all the way across country, so we booked concerts. That's why we're doing these concerts in Texas and Mississippi. And so I'm currently writing a screenplay about that adventure, because I want it to be kind of a period piece that describes not only the music of that time, but the synthesizer technology, because we both just played these huge monster synthesizers at that time on stage.
Back then, it would take a whole van to fit that equipment in.
Yep, that's why when we went cross country, we had to bring a tent because there's no room for us to lay down in the van.
Right.
So we camped.
Sounds like some of our camping festivals that we've gone to.
Exactly. And so the screenplay I'm writing is actually a comedy. It's also, dramatic, but it's because so many hilarious things happen. But that's when we were working, after that was when we were working with Carl Sagan, the astronomer. And so we did all of his music for a period of time for all his documentary films, which was kind of cool.
And you're still doing that now, so that kind of was leading you down the road for that. Yeah. So I know that in that earlier time, you did do a lot of music and collaborations with other musicians in the San Francisco area.
Yeah, and we lived in San Francisco. Yeah. No, go ahead. It was just a very exciting time to live in San Francisco because. Yeah,
so we would like to hear a little more about that. Like, who did you get to see or play with at the time? Or,
well, yeah, there were it was an exciting time for new age music, because it was just starting, and that's really one of the places that it really started. And we were one of the earliest bands from that. And it was also a place for electronic music. And it was a place where the whole technology industry was just beginning. In fact, Steve Jobs asked us to do a piece of music for this new little computer company he was starting. And so we did a thing for his logo, and it was an apple, and it spun around and then stopped. And, you know, he wanted synthesizer music. So we did this film for him, little 30-second thing. And so he said, well, I can give you some stock in my company or $250. And guess which one we took? $250.
Cash money, right?
Yeah. I don't have a lot of regrets, but that might be one of them.
Yeah. So that was before that took off for them.
That was 1980, probably 83.
83.
So he was already had his, he was already up and coming, but he, I'm not even sure if it was a publicly traded company yet, but he was, yeah, he was a very interesting character and a real visionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So early on, I know that, you know, you and Robert Rauschenberg, the two of you were very, very close friends. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity to take care of him and work in the studio for a little bit. So knowing that, I know you have had a long working relationship with him. And so does that cover some of your earlier music as well? Could you talk a little bit about how maybe that got started?
Sure. Well, for those of you who might not be familiar with Rauschenberg, he's a really well-known contemporary artist. It's not one specific style, because he would kind of do one thing and then move on to another. And he was a spectacular person. And I became friends with him actually just shortly after I moved to this area, and I'm living North Fort Myers now. But shortly after I moved from San Francisco to Fort Myers, I met him. And we just hit it off. And so many times we would play all night long. He would play music. I always go, he played music with me, and I always do the air quotes. Because he wasn't a trained musician. And a lot of times what he played sounded a lot like noise. But he was actually a very collaborative player. He was playing a lot of noise, but he was like interspersing his noise in a thoughtful way along with what I was playing. And my stuff was sometimes like noise, but it was more often angelic than noise.
Right, so, and some of this process sounds similar to the things that he was doing with Mercy Cunningham with some of the performances.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're familiar with the music he would do for that, and he only recorded one album in his life, and that was with me and my then husband Bob, called Strategic Structures. And I'm looking around, I don't have one at hand to show you, but it's an album. It was recently reissued on vinyl, and a very nice issue of that. So that's also, it was fun to play with him. Like I said, he wasn't, he was a very abstract musician as far as,
yeah,
had no use for
his work
skills or intonation. But it was fun. Yeah.
Okay. I do, and I'm so excited to get to hear some of your flutes. And I know those of you that have joined us tonight with World Fusion Wednesdays, Kat has several flutes, some that she wants to play for you tonight. I know that practicing and being one to have been at her home and done recording there and practicing. I know your house is filled with flutes and instruments. So yeah, if you wanted to start showing us some of these things, it'd be great.
Sure. There are several different ways. I have a huge flute collection, and it just kind of ended up, I had a few flutes, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. I don't know if you've ever had somebody thought perhaps that you were a collector of octopus sculptures or something, then every birthday somebody gives you that. So it's kind of like that with flutes, but I love all the flutes I have. I've collected most of them in my travels around the world, but I also do get gifted some of them in a couple of ways. People go traveling and bring me something, which is cool, or they have some flutes that they don't really need anymore, and often I get flutes that belong to someone who's passed away and who is a flute player, and somebody just doesn't want to they wouldn't throw them away, but give them to Goodwill or something. So they now find a home for them. And that includes even, the standard flutes. I get a lot of those. I don't keep those, but I do donate them to young students who want to learn to play the flute. So
awesome.
I have a lot of people who give me flutes, which is a wonderful thing. Yeah, and well, this one is one that was actually made for me. And this one is made by Ray Wood, who is a wonderful,
I have a flute from him too.
Yes, and he's a wonderful flute maker. And I've had flutes from a lot of different flute makers, but he lives in Florida and is a really fine flute maker. This one is in the key of E. You can see it has some inlay on, yeah, you can see that inlay there.
Yeah.
It's a nice, it's a long one, but.
It looks like cedar. Is it a cedar flute?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, a good flute maker or instrument maker like Stradivarius or anyone signs it, and there's his signature.
Yeah.
In the back.
Awesome.
So I'll just play a little bit of this so we can kind of get some music in our souls here.
Yes, here we go.
We all need that.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. We could hear most of it, and I think there was one little time where it just clipped. You might have gotten kind of close or something like that.
That could
but
be.
It sounded great.
It could be when I'm singing, it's a little too much volume.
Oh, nah, that was awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, it feels a little strange that I can't hear your reactions, but it looked like you maybe.
Oh, there's people are clapping.
Right.
It's fine. they're giving high fives and jumping up and
I see Alice is doing the
yeah.
the fingers thing. Yeah, that's a really nice quality flute. And I always recommend people who want to learn to play a musical instrument and think about a flute. I mean, the standard flute is a wonderful instrument to play, especially if you have 10 or 20 years to really work on it.
Yeah.
But if you would like to maybe work on something a couple of hours a week, a flute that I just played is the one to do it, because you can take 20 years to really perfect it or to keep getting better. In fact, you always get better, but you can play well enough to play in like a drum circle or something pretty quickly, especially with some good instruction. I'm sure Nathan would be a good teacher of this kind of flute, and I also do that also.
So we can connect people that would like to take lessons with you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So if we, yeah. And that's one of the things that that we're doing with World Fusion Classroom with our education portal is helping people make those connections, whether they're teachers or presenters and what have you. So
yeah,
how about,
I like to when somebody, I've taught many people this native flute who said, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to learn it, but I'll just come for one lesson, and please, you know, don't feel bad if I can't play it. And they're playing at least a melody by the end of the first lesson, because I think so many of us have been told as children, oh, you're not musical, you can't play, you can't sing, and we believe it. And I think everybody is musical.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard that you had the Baowu that you were going to share with us. This is a really interesting, can we call it a flute? Tell us about this.
Sure, you can call it a flute, although technically it is not one. It is actually a double reed instrument, like an oboe or a bassoon. And it's a primitive instrument, but I played oboe for many years, and as you play oboe or bassoon, you're always fooling with the reed, and it's always not quite right, and you have to soak it or trim it or buy a new one. And I've had this Baowu for probably 20 years, and this is what the reed is. See this metal thing? It's just a piece of, like, probably a tin can or something. It's a primitively made thing, and this reed always works. And
they just patched it in there like that for it to do that. So it's vibrating inside, just like
they made a hole in the, like this whole thing here is a square insert, and they cut a square hole in the bamboo of this Baowu, and they set it in there tightly.
Wow.
And then
I just love the sound, because I know that you used it on one of the tracks that we recorded, and we can talk about that a little later. But
here's some Baowu. Now this thing, it is not a delicate sound, but it transports you to another place and time.
So tell us again, where is this from?
That's from like Southeast Asia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Cambodia, southern China, maybe Laos, you would see some.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I always think it sounds like the snake charmer.
Oh yeah, it sounds very similar to that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that your next flute that you have on the list, I know that we have played a few different times for events with the Calusa Museum, and that you have studied the Calusas for a long time. So could you talk to us a little bit about this as you introduce your next flute, maybe the work you've been doing?
Sure. Actually, the clay flute is from Costa Rica.
Oh, okay.
But the bird bone is Calusa.
Yes.
So you want? I'll play the bird bone next, since we started talking about the Calusa.
Okay, that'd be great.
I think I know many of you. I think most of you are from South Florida, and that is where the Calusa are from, and they lived right here amongst us where we are today. So I wanted to start studying about their musical instruments and what their music might have been. So they had several different kinds of instruments, including a flute that was made from a river reed. It's not bamboo, because we didn't have bamboo at that time, but this is based on a Calusa flute that they didn't find any, because this is a fairly flimsy material. Yeah. But they have written records that the Spaniards, they had a scribe who documented everything as they were exploring and obliterating the Calusa. So they described this flute and the music, and this is the flute from the river reed.
Wow.
So I call this the voice of the Calusa, because I try to tell their story, because there are no more Calusa in existence. So I try to tell their story so we don't forget these really delightful, I mean, they're also very fierce people, but they had some delightful art and customs and architecture. So I like to really learn as much as I can, especially about their music. There's many archaeologists and anthropologists studying them, and I just kind of took on the idea of learning about their music. So I ended up hanging out with all these Calusa experts for their seminars and symposiums. They say, well, we got to get the world's foremost expert on Calusa music to play for our seminar. I was like, okay, that would be me, because I'm really the only expert on Calusa music. So automatically I'm the best. But the other Calusa flute that I play when I did these presentations in museums, sometimes with Nathan accompanying me too, which when I'm fortunate. And but this is another one of their flutes, based on their flute. This is a bird bone flute, and it would have been made from the leg of a wading bird, possibly an osprey, but usually from, you know, a longer, like a great egret or heron, or possibly a crane. And this, sometimes when I play it, I can hear the sound of the bird flying overhead where this bone came from. It's an actual bird bone.
Wow.
See, you can see the
joint.
It's a femur.
Wow. How long have you had that one? I know we've performed with it several times.
Probably 25 years, something like that. I've had that one a while. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I know you were on the list. You had the clay Dolphin flute.
Yes, and that is made of. It's a beautiful artwork, art piece sculpturally. See on the top, you can see the lizard.
Yeah.
And here is the dolphin.
Oh, wow.
See him?
Yeah.
His eyes are here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So there's his nose. And Costa Rica has quite a tradition of creating little, they're almost like ocarinas as far as the technology of the flute itself.
The animal totems and stuff.
Yeah, and they have them, I don't have another one right nearby, but they usually have 3 or 4 different animal faces. So you play one and then you turn it around and it's something else. So this one is actually quite a beautiful one and a quite well made sound-wise too. And each of the animals, when they make these, each of the animals is a separate flute. The lizard is a separate flute from the dolphin.
So are we going to get to hear both?
Yes, you will. The
All right.
dolphin will begin and the lizard will end the piece.
Okay. Wow. Such a difference in tone.
Yes, he's pretty small.
Uh-huh.
His whole tone path is just through this little part here.
Right. So you're going to get a higher tone that way.
Yeah. Just like a smaller flute has a higher tone.
Now, I know from a lot of experience playing with you that some of these flutes and instruments, they're real touchy. And I know that Kat really is a master with her own technology as far as sound effects and everything. And could you talk a little bit about that, maybe, of your process of trying to get these sounds right? Because I know you do a lot of recording at home even. So
yeah, I'm really doing more work as far as for my career, recording music for over the past at least 10 years. I compose music for film pretty much as my full-time job. And then I enjoy playing music live too, but
Yeah.
good thing I have something else right now.
Yeah.
But since I started out on analog synthesizers, well, I started out on piano, then learned the flute, and then played the synthesizers. My first synthesizer was a bukla, which is one of the original instruments and we also had a mini mode. Then from there, just went to my main instrument was an ARP 2600. So I do have a lot of experience in the technology. And I also am an audio recording engineer, which helps because if you're going to do film scores, you have to have an audio engineer there the whole time. So it's good that I do have that. And it's all, of course, digital now. When I started out, it was all reel to reels, if you were lucky, and then went through a lot of changes, but now, of course, it's all computer based.
So that being said about doing a lot of the production work in your home, and kind of combining those natural sounds that we got to hear with the flutes with your electronic sounds and the process of merging the two. So I know that you and I have recently put out an album, and could you share with us a little bit about some of your thoughts about there we go. I know that's
good. I just happen to have one. Yeah, that was a really really wonderful project is what I was trying to say. Yeah. And Nathan and I recorded that one in a really excellent studio that was not mine. My studio is a production studio for just for me to play, and it's not, I don't have all the super microphones, but we went into a really good recording studio and worked with a couple of excellent engineers who are also our really good friends.
Daryl.
Yeah. And so that was, I really love to do that also because then I can be a musician. When I'm playing in my own studio, I'm always watching the meters and the waveforms, and I'm also have to have my mind on that somewhat. So that was great. And Nathan and I played instruments from all over the world, and we combined instruments that would not necessarily have ever met in real life, like a didgeridoo with
bass flute.
With a bass flute, yes. And a bass flute is a traditional European, well, it's actually, it's European, but it's from the Impressionist era. It's a relatively new classical flute.
And that was one that you wanted to share with us. Do you have that? Could you play it for just?
I do. It's funny you should ask. I happen to have one right here. And this, many of you have seen me play this before, but this is a flute, giving you kind of the, and it goes on and on.
Yeah,
and,
so if you stretched it out, you could play it around the corner.
Yes, and that's, and when, it's like, why is the curve in it? Well, if I were just going to play it and it was full length, there's no way I could ever reach the end for the flute. So it comes back so that you can actually reach it to play it. And the nice thing about this, nice and difficult thing about this is it's an octave lower. It's also twice as big. It's twice as long as a classical regular concert flute that you're accustomed to seeing. And it takes twice as much air to make it resonate. But the air has to move half as fast.
Yeah.
So it's an automatic meditation machine. Just to get that breathing technique, you really go into.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's just a little example of a bass flute.
Mm. Beautiful sound. It's really hard for me to not hear my didgeridoo when you're playing that.
Me
And
too.
it's one of my favorite pieces to perform when we play is the subtleties between the didgeridoo and the bass flute and some of the harmonics that happen. And I know, you know, we enjoy sometimes those simple sounds and how amazing they can be. We are getting to a point at our show here that I wanted to open up for some question and answer. And, you know, if you wanted to go ahead and finish any other things that you wanted to share about some of the things we're doing, and then in just a few moments we'll go ahead and take some questions. So when we do get to the questions, I'm going to look on the screen, and if you do have a question, you can just hold your hand up once Kat is done talking, and we'll give the floor to you, and this will be part of our interactive portion of our show. So anything else you wanted to share on what we were doing?
Well, just when we play together, when Nathan and I play together, we do combine instruments that are from different parts of the world. And so I think, to me, that's always very interesting because we're not playing from any specific musical tradition. We're incorporating a little bit of a lot of things, kind of creating a global music that's a melting pot. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I think that album I really enjoyed because the sound quality is really good.
Yes.
And I also did
hold
play.
it up one more time for us. Could you hold it up close to the?
I didn't want to do a shameless plug, but here you go.
Oh,
but
that's okay.
Yeah, and it's here's and
yeah. You can that. How can they order your CDs that you? Yeah.
I guess you can come to my website. I do have these in stock, and it's katepple.com. And I may not have. Yeah, I think I do have these. You can download them, but you can also order the actual CDs. Just fill in the contact form, and I'll give you all the info.
Okay, great. So I would like to open up the portion for questions. If anyone had a question or wanted to say something for this part of the show, just simply kind of put your hand up or let us know that you'd like to talk. We got Doug. So you go ahead and unmute your mic.
How's that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good to see you and Eva.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for performing. I really enjoyed the bass flute. I dabble in didgeridoo myself, and me and Nate play sometimes together, so I know how wonderful that can be. So I'm asking for this one right here. Have you had any experience playing any Balkan wind instruments? We've been to Kosovo a few times, and I picked up, it's called a surla. It's the best way I could describe it would be a cross between a horn and a flute. It's wood. It's got a flare at the end of it. I could go get it and show it to you, but I just wanted to ask you if you had any experience with wind instruments from that part of the world.
Well, I have traveled that part of the world, but when I was there, I could not find one that was for sale, but I did meet a lot of players that were playing. What an interesting music style they have. I think it's very different. I really love their music. Yeah. But I do not have one of those, so I should put it on my list.
It's just a very high pitch. I think it's also very hard to play it. I don't know how you even play it, but Doug was interested, and I was not one of the teachers for sure.
Kat, Eva is a wonderful friend of ours, and she also does Balkan dancing, and
wow.
so we see Doug and Eva quite a bit at the drumming festivals and music festivals. So when those things get going again, we have to get Kat to one of these. So that would be great.
I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it. I love working with dance. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions for tonight? Okay, we have Sandy. If you can unmute your mic and.
I think they're already
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Kat, is that a conch that I see behind you on the sofa?
Yes, it is.
And I'll tell you why I ask, because we've been fiddling around with making those and playing them, but I would love to hear you play it.
Well, I haven't played it in a while. That wasn't too good. I think I'm out of practice, but you get the idea.
There
we go. There we go. Okay, thank you.
Sure, and this was, as you probably know, one of the Calusa instruments too, or it was not used for music, it was used for communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And did you make yours? Are they working?
Yes, in fact, here I have one on the table behind me. Here's one right.
Okay, let's
right
hear
here.
it. Let's hear you play it.
Oh, no, I haven't played it for a while. It's not going to be any better.
I know, I didn't either. I haven't played this since last year.
Yeah, good.
That's excellent.
That was sounding great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
See, you know what?
What?
Well, you guys might be on the same side of the river, correct?
Yeah,
Pat's in North Fort Myers, so you're in
Cape Coral.
So maybe
I didn't. We're playing from both sides of the river tonight, so.
I'll play and see if you can hear me from your front porch.
Undoubtedly I could, yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, you're welcome. Anybody else have a question or something they'd like to say tonight? Oh, we have Ginger with her hand up. I want to introduce my mom here. Mom, thank you for being here tonight. And I'm glad you get to meet Kat. So this is great.
Absolutely. My question is, first of all, so much of your flute playing is such a gift and so meditative, such a gift that you give to people. And I wonder if you get blessed as you're performing, as you're sharing your gift with others, are you able to meditate, or are you able to benefit as well from the gift you were given?
Yeah, when I play the flutes, I really do go into a place of stillness, and I do feel that. In fact, I can play a flute almost any time, but when I go into it and really experience the flute, I go right there, and that's when I can move other people. I think if you're just playing the instrument, people can enjoy it with their brains, but it doesn't necessarily touch their soul and their heart as much. So I think any musician almost has to go there themselves. If you're gonna play a song that makes you cry on a guitar, you almost have to cry to play it.
Mhm.
Oh yes, I do. I meditate when I'm playing, especially my own music, our own music. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great.
Very
It's very evident.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, I could talk about and play flutes for hours.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question or something that they'd like to say?
Hi, Kat. Charles here.
All right.
Charles?
I wanna play a little tune for you. It's a tsunami flute in E. I'm gonna
Wonderful.
real quick.
Sure.
There you go.
Cool.
Great. Thank you so much,
From the
Charles.
Lakota territories. I was just out there. Out in South Dakota.
Charles, I know that a couple of times you had Kat and I play at your home. You had a house concert. Would you mind sharing with everybody just a little bit about your experience with us playing in your home and how that was?
Oh, that was so amazing to have you guys come and play at Westport Lane, where we had our lodge there for many years. And
They played here too.
it was just spectacular, and always, and then we had, what was her name that played the cello? That's not with us anymore?
Oh, I think you were talking about Gay Levine.
Yeah, yeah. Remember we were all together playing there?
Yes.
It was like one of the first concerts. It was so beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, we're talking like 05, 06, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that we had a wonderful time in your home where you're at now, and we really enjoyed doing that as far as playing a house concert. And in a sense, the way that we designed this show is for people to have an experience with the artist, the presenter, the musician, and to get a feeling like you can relax in your home and you can get to know the person that we have on the show. So, with this, as well as having house concerts where it's a little different than going to a venue outside or whatever, a little bit different of a feel. So, we wanted to provide a platform through this program for artists, presenters, musicians to share about their process, to talk with them about what they're doing, to promote themselves. Okay, and so this show, we're essentially paying the musician, artist, or presenter for their time to be on the show, because we're all about preservation of the arts. So some of it was a response to, okay, we got to get creative and figure out ways to create gigs and means of continuing to do what we do as artists. So we have another question. Did somebody have another question? Okay, I was just checking, and we have to kind of switch screens here to see everybody.
Yeah.
But I wanted to allow Kat to share any final thoughts with us. And I wanted to thank everybody for joining us for the program. And if you do like what you're experiencing tonight, our next show is going to be on the 30th. And I would just like to screen share this image for you. We will be, okay, here we go. We have my friend Peter Levitoff will be with us on the 30th, and he is a hand pan player. So this instrument is similar to the steel drum, but it's played with your hands. He's also a multi-instrumentalist and a teacher. So if you have not seen this instrument, it is incredible. He's a beautiful human being, and we're excited to have him on the show too. So if you want to put that on your calendar, if you know somebody else that might be interested to join us, that would be great. So I'd just like to hand it off to Kat Epple one more time for any finishing thoughts. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight for World Fusion Wednesday. All right, Kat.
Would you like to hear me play one more little short thing?
That would be wonderful.
I just kind of wanted to play. These are such scary times out there that I think that music is a really healing thing for the world, and especially just for us. So I wanted to play something that was kind of upbeat and optimistic. And this is on the standard flute, which I actually also play. A lot of people think when they see me play on the world flutes, it's because I can't really play the regular flute, but I can. So I'll play a little bit of just a short thing to kind of help us see beyond all of this cloudiness that's here now. There's going to be an even better world. So.
Right.
Nice. Beautiful.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Kat, it was a pleasure to have you for the first episode for our program. Love you so much. Thank you for sharing your gift and your joy and your passion and your peace. I know peace, education is a big part of your focus with your music. So everybody, I wish you a beautiful evening. Thank you for joining us tonight on World Fusion Wednesdays. Please give a look at our website, World Fusion Classroom. Check out some of the classes that we offer. We offer homeschool support. We have studio classes for kids and adults. So stay tuned, and we hope to see you on the 30th with Peter Levitoff. So y'all have a great night out there. Kat, thank you.
Thank you.
And
thank you all.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks, Nate.
Woo-hoo.
night. Thank you.
Bye.
Right. We talk yesterday.
Takias.